Good morning. This is Steve, and once again, we're going to be reading out of the book Attuned by Thomas Hubl, Practicing Interdependence to Heal Our Trauma and Our World. I've been working with the area of trauma, well, my whole life, but I've studied it beginning in 1970, so I've studied it for 54 years. And just been working with understanding what trauma is. And trauma, one definition of trauma is an unresolved experience, unresolved, overwhelming experience. So something unexpectedly happened. I've used the incident where at the age of 12 or 13 I was struck in my left side, in my ear, by a fist of another boy my age, but a lot larger. Was upset at something and just boom, hit me in the side of the head. And really, I found myself working with the energetics of that this whole lifetime. It's if I was 12 and it was 61 years ago that this event occurred, and I'm using it as an illustration, and maybe I'm using it as an illustration because I noticed this morning a discomfort in my left ear. So we don't know what that energy of anger or rage or whatever that struck us, and that it was so overwhelming that our body just froze that energy. And then I went over and sat on a bench and I tried to process it, but I didn't. And here, 61 years later, talking about this event that occurred 61 years previously. That is an overwhelming event. And living on Earth, we may just download traumatic events from our ancestors who were in wars and who lost family members and who different things happened to. And even if that was their experience on a personal level, they can just bring that in. So when we're working with these events, we may not be working with ones that we personally experienced. So that can help to understand when we get triggered. The term triggered refers to an emotional protective response that surfaces where something touches that event from the past that's unresolved, and we react in a defensive way, and we go into an emotional state, and we explain to people why it was terrible what they did, or whatever it is, whatever we do with it. When we just go launch into these emotional responses, it has to do with something that's unresolved. Thomas explains this better than anyone. So this part of the chapter is creating inner and outer coherence. So the verb cohere refers to the creation of a unified whole. Integration is therefore an act of coherence, where each a dynamic interplay between the physical, emotional, and mental aspects of the self. When we express internal coherence or synchronization across all three aspects, we become more present and can more clearly sense, perceive, and attune with our environment. When practicing transparent communication, we are focused on understanding the degree of alignment and flow between the body, mind, and emotions, our own and other people's, and observing how these centers of awareness connect with our external environment. Can you think of a time you were talking to someone and notice that their words seem to contradict their body language? People often say one thing but feel another. With contemplative practice, areas of seeming contradiction become clearer and more evident. Your task, of course, is simply to note the energy without judgment. Transparent communication allows us to see when, where, and how internal and external misalignment is surfacing. It's about learning the language of coherence. So I'll show you this picture, and we'll see if I can line it up and hold it still enough. I'm going to read it to you, but the figure on the left shows two people relating from a high degree of inner coherence, and he uses the figure 8 symbol to show that energy, that flow of energy going through two people, both mentally, emotionally, and physically. And then he shows a coherence of the mind, but a separation in emotional coherence and in body coherence. The figure to the right shows two people attempting to relate from a low degree of inner coherence, and as a result they lack spaciousness and may over-mentalize without feeling or sensing one another in a deeper way. Practicing higher attunement allows us to establish conscious relational space in which we can better notice and feel any symptoms of incoherence or disconnection. By simply becoming aware of what is present, you can attend to these symptoms with presence and compassion. Let's say Adele comes to you and to talk about a relationship dilemma. As you listen, you might say, "I can feel in my own body how stressful this must be for you right now." Because if you are attuned, you will be able to feel Adele's response to her experience with her. When she agrees that her relationship problem is stressing her out, you might gently invite her to stay with the feeling of the stress for a moment, simply allowing it and being present for it. We never solve these sorts of stresses with our heads alone, after all. However, if we feel back down into our bodies, tracking where the sensation called stress is located, and noticing what it looks and feels like, we can often learn a great deal that is beneficial, even healing. We might discover, for example, that this thing we have been calling stress is actually an unacknowledged, untended sadness or anger that has been hiding out somewhere in the body. Perhaps it has taken the form of an absence and disconnection of energy. Or maybe this fear energy shows up as an uncomfortable constriction or as a painful knot. As long as the fear goes unwitnessed, Adele will feel too agitated to truly sit with her experience. But if she allows herself to investigate it by simply moving her awareness into the sensation, she may notice whether her fear is a response to a perceived threat or an actual one, new or old. Just by being with the agitation for a while, the energy may shift, relaxing the tension it had been holding and allowing Adele to come back into relation with herself and with others. And that seems enough for now. For now, must go.